snapped at my roommate over her Moochy boyfriend using my toiletries and hijacking our apartment. Now she calls me controlling. I'm a 21-year-old woman, and right now I live in a 2-bedroom flat with my roommate, who's 22. We've lived together for just over a year, and until recently, things have gone pretty smoothly. We split the rent and bills evenly, respect each other's space, and while we're not super close, it's been a comfortable living situation. Things started to shift about 6 months ago when my roommate began dating this guy, who's 24. At first, he was only around once or twice a week, which I didn't mind at all. But lately, it feels like he basically lives here. I'm talking 5 or 6 nights a week, sometimes whole weeks in a row. He's not on the lease. He doesn't pay rent or contribute to bills, never buys groceries, and doesn't help with chores. And while it was annoying, I tried not to say anything because I understood. He's her boyfriend, and I didn't want to be that roommate causing drama. But then there's the shower situation. He showers constantly. Like, a minimum of twice a day. And every single time, he uses my stuff, my shampoo, conditioner, face wash, razor, even my deodorant. Yes, deodorant. At first, I thought maybe my roommate had let him use something once, so I didn't say anything. But when it kept happening, I got fed up and started carrying my things back and forth from my room to the bathroom like I was at summer camp. Not fun. I eventually brought it up to my roommate, hoping for a reasonable conversation. But she just brushed it off, saying, he probably didn't realize. She didn't say anything to him or try to fix it. After a while, I got more direct. I told her I wasn't comfortable with him showering here all the time, especially because he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute to anything, and always uses my stuff. I told her I'd feel differently if he at least bought his own toiletries or helped out with anything, really. She got super annoyed and told me he doesn't have any money and can't buy his own stuff, and that I was being cold and controlling. She accused me of overreacting, insisting that it was just hygiene. That's when I snapped. I told her it wasn't about hygiene, it was about boundaries and respect. Honestly, if she or he had even just asked, I wouldn't have minded picking up some basics for him myself. But they didn't ask. They both just assumed I'd be okay with it. To be completely honest, I don't even like him much. He's not terrible, but he's moochy and has zero self-awareness. I know maybe I'm being more harsh because he annoys me in general, so I started to question myself. But now, my roommate is barely talking to me and told one of our mutual friends that I'm being weirdly territorial, and apparently, passive-aggressive, over her boyfriend just taking a quick shower. Sometimes I feel bad because he is broke, and I wonder if I'm being too harsh. But at the same time, it really feels like I'm being completely walked over in my own home. I just want to know, am I actually being out of line, or is it fair to say enough is enough? Update 1. So, after another long day, I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. When my roommate got home, I knew I had to finally address what had been eating away at me for so long. I tried to keep my voice calm, but every word felt heavy. I told her, honestly, that this situation with her boyfriend is seriously getting under my skin. I get that she's head over heels, but I'm not some extra in the background who's just supposed to accept her boyfriend's constant presence. Like our place is a revolving door he never leaves. I laid it all out. For months now, it's like her boyfriend has unofficially moved in. He's here all the time, eating, showering, lounging on the couch, and sleeping over at least 5 or 6 nights a week. There's a line between having a boyfriend over and basically gaining a new roommate who never pays a cent. And she just stared at me, blinked once, and said I was being heartless. Those were her actual words. She accused me of having no compassion for their relationship or for him, or for the fact that he's broke and needs somewhere to stay, to eat, to just exist. She went as far as saying I cared more about my shampoo than about her boyfriend, who supposedly means everything to her. Something in me just snapped at that. I told her point blank, this isn't about shampoo. It's about respect, and the lack of it I've felt for months. Her boyfriend, who doesn't pay rent, who's not on the lease, who never contributes to bills, has been just helping himself to my personal stuff for months without so much as a heads up. Not once did he ask. Not once did she ask. He just started using my shampoo, my conditioner, my razor, my face wash, even my deodorant, as if I was running a hotel and he was the honored guest. The worst part? He barely even acknowledges my existence. The man's lived here in my space for months and I swear we've had maybe 2 conversations, ever. Half the time he won't even say hi, just breezes past me to the bathroom, helps himself to my stuff, and acts like it's nothing. I honestly can't believe I let it go on this long. If either of them had just asked, even one single time, I probably would have been fine. Believe me, I get being broke. I would have even picked up some basics for him if money was tight. But they never said a word. They just silently decided it was okay to use my things, my space, take up my life, like my opinion didn't matter. Of course, she got defensive. Arms crossed. That classic I'm not budging posture. She snapped, well, he's my boyfriend and I'm allowed to have him over. It's my home too. And I agreed, sure, she can have him over. But let's not pretend he's here just sometimes. He's always here. He's slept here more nights than not for months, and even when he's not staying over, he's around. At this point, he's moved in without actually moving in. If he's going to act like he lives here, then he needs to contribute, plain and simple. She just rolled her eyes and said, "Get used to it. He's my boyfriend and, like I said, he has barely any money, so he wouldn't be able to contribute anything." That was it for me. I've been patient. I've tried to be understanding, I've given them the benefit of the doubt, again and again. But I'm done being treated like I don't matter in my own home. I finally see I'm not overreacting, I'm reacting to months of being ignored and walked all over. Tomorrow, I'm calling our landlord. I'll explain that this guy has effectively moved in, he's been here for weeks on end, using our amenities, taking up space, and not paying a single penny toward rent or bills. If he's going to keep staying here, he needs to contribute. I didn't want things to get to this point, but I'm not going to keep carrying the cost and the stress of a third person in this flat just because my roommate's in a relationship. She made it clear she isn't going to do anything about it, so now I will. If nothing else, I'm relieved, I finally see I'm not out of line for wanting to be respected in my own home. Update 2. That morning, nerves twisted in my stomach as I picked up the phone to finally speak with my landlord. I didn't want it to seem like I was tattling or trying to stir up drama, but I just couldn't keep ignoring the situation anymore. He answered right away and, to my relief, stayed calm and professional throughout the whole conversation. I laid out everything as clearly and fairly as I could, explaining how my roommate's boyfriend had basically moved in, staying over 5 or 6 nights a week, sometimes more. Not only was he always occupying our shared space, using all the utilities, and eating our food, but he'd even started to help himself to my personal belongings like my shampoo, face wash, razor, and deodorant. All of this, without ever pitching in for rent, bills, or even the occasional grocery run. The landlord listened and then, after a brief pause, reassured me that I wasn't overreacting. He reminded me that while guests are allowed for short stays or the occasional weekend under the lease, having someone over so often, on a consistent basis, meant he was now considered an unofficial tenant. If my roommate wanted him there all the time, he'd need to be added to the lease and start paying his share immediately. Otherwise, the boyfriend would have to cut back on his stays, and if my roommate refused, she'd be at risk of breaching our lease agreement, which could even mean eviction if she kept pushing it. That response really shook me up, but honestly, it validated all the frustration I'd been feeling. A few hours later, around 5 p.m., her boyfriend showed up again. As he tried to walk past me like usual, I stopped him and told him we needed to talk. He looked a bit caught off guard, feigning confusion, but I didn't back down. I told him I knew he'd been staying here almost every night and that I was especially uncomfortable with him using my personal things, my shower stuff, snacks, everything, without asking, or even acknowledging that he wasn't contributing. That's when he got defensive. He didn't yell, but his tone immediately turned snappy and guilt-trippy. He told me he was sorry, that he didn't have anywhere else to go, that he was struggling with his mental health and unemployment, and that his family had cut him off. He said he could barely afford food, let alone shampoo, and accused me of being another person turning their back on him when he was already at rock bottom. He wanted me to feel guilty for even raising it. I refused to get sucked into that guilt spiral. Calmly, I explained that if he had just asked, I might have helped him out with the basics. But he'd never bothered to say anything, just helped himself as if it was owed to him. He didn't have much of a comeback after that, just shrugged and muttered that he didn't think it was a big deal. My roommate apparently told him it was all fine. I told him it wasn't fine for me. This is my home, too, and he's been treating it as a free house which he can just crash at indefinitely. That isn't going to work anymore. I explained that the landlord is getting involved and either he gets added to the lease and starts paying, or he stops staying here constantly. If my roommate doesn't cooperate, she could be evicted. That seemed to finally get through to him. He mumbled a half-hearted apology and disappeared into a room, clearly embarrassed. I've been patient and communicative, so at this point, whatever happens next is on them, not me. No response yet from my roommate since whatever conversation she had with the landlord. She hasn't come home, which makes me believe she's furious. But I'm done prioritizing her comfort over my own peace of mind. I've been more than fair. On a practical note, I locked away my shower stuff and snacks, the ones I bought with my own money. I picked up a little lockable storage box from Argos, thank you to those who suggested it, set a truly unique 4-digit code, and tucked it under my bed. If the boyfriend really tries to break into that, then I guess there's no limit to what he'll do. I'll keep updating if my roommate says anything more. For now, I'm reclaiming my space, and I finally feel alright about it. Update 3. When my roommate finally came home, about an hour ago, just before noon, the tension hit the flat like a thunderclap. She stormed in, slammed the door, flung her keys and bag onto the side table, and every movement broadcasted just how furious she was. I was in the living room, and the energy in the apartment flipped in a second. Taking a deep breath, I emerged, greeted her, and as gently as I could, asked if everything was okay. She didn't answer right away, just stood there, jaw clenched, before suddenly blurting out that she couldn't believe I'd actually called our landlord. Then, with a bitter laugh, she accused me of being dramatic. I kept my cool and reminded her that I'd told her I'd take this step if nothing changed. I hadn't gone behind her back or blindsided her. She scoffed, saying, "Yeah well, now thanks to that, our landlord told me in no uncertain terms that boyfriend's name, is not allowed to stay more than 2 nights a week anymore unless he starts paying rent. She was fuming. She demanded to know if I even understood what that meant, then told me again just how dear her boyfriend's situation was, that he literally had nowhere else to go, and that he wasn't here to take advantage but out of sheer necessity. She pointed out he had no money for rent or bills, and what, was he now supposed to wander the streets at night and freeze to death while I sleep soundly knowing your shampoo's safe and sound? The sarcasm stung. She almost made me laugh, if the situation wasn't so frustrating. I told her calmly that it was never about shampoo or soap, it was about respect, about him being here non-stop, living off us without ever being asked to contribute, and about her unwillingness to acknowledge how it affected me. I tried to talk to her about this twice, and she dismissed me both times. What else was I supposed to do? She glared at me like I was the most unfeeling, heartless person alive. She said he was her boyfriend, and of course she'd want him around when he's suffering, and now I'd made him feel completely unwelcome. She explained that his family cut him off out of nowhere, and even his friends treated him terribly. Apparently, after I confronted him, he called her, told her he'd try staying at a friend's place for the night, and sounded like he was on the verge of tears before hanging up. Just another example of people not giving a FCK about him when he needs it most, according to her. I hadn't even heard him leave, so he must have snuck out quietly. All of her guilt-tripping washed over me, but I felt almost numb to it by then. I told her I was sorry her boyfriend is in such a rough spot. But this is my home, too. I pay rent and bills, I help keep the place running just as much as she does. I'm not some extra in her relationship. She invited him into our space without asking and acted like his living here, using my things, was just normal. That's not okay. She went quiet then, still clearly furious but out of arguments. I hope you're happy, she finally snapped before shutting herself in her room with a slam. I'm not happy. I never wanted it to get this far. But I'm also not sorry. I've been endlessly patient, I've tried to act like an adult, and her boyfriend feeling unwelcome is a direct result of their choices, not my cruelty. So this is where things are now, tense, awkward, and likely about to get worse before it gets better. Still, I can almost see the horizon, a future where my shampoo and snacks are safe, and maybe, finally, a little peace in my own home. Update 4. Things have been tense but eerily quiet since everything exploded. My roommate has barely spoken to me, days passing in a fog of awkward silences and heavy sighs. I kept my boundaries up, stayed polite, but honestly, we both clearly needed space from each other. Yesterday, the quiet shattered. My roommate's boyfriend came over, supposedly just to collect something of his, but the two of them ended up in a full-blown screaming match. The walls in our flat might as well be paper, so whether I wanted to or not, I heard every word. He railed at her for not sticking up for him when I talked to our landlord, or when I brought up any issues, which, ironically, she absolutely did. He accused her of letting me humiliate him, of making him look pathetic, and said that a real partner would defend him. It was one of those wild moments where you see someone weaponize hurt feelings just to twist the story and keep control. She was sobbing, trying to make her case, but he just kept steamrolling her until he finally stormed out, slamming the door so hard the whole flat shook. She followed, tears streaming, and I thought, for a moment, maybe that uptick in drama would be the last of it for the night. But the night had other plans. Around 2 a.m., she staggered in, tipsy, angry, and ready to unleash. She started slurring accusations at me, saying I must just be jealous and bitter because I don't have a boyfriend. As if there was any world in which I wished to be anywhere near her manipulative, guilt-tripping mess of a boyfriend. She babbled on about how I can't stand to see her happy, how I must want to ruin things for her. Bitter, pathetic, she called me every miserable name in her inebriated vocabulary, then stomped off and passed out. This morning, I found her in the kitchen nursing a hangover, looking like her world had just crumbled. She muttered about not knowing what to think anymore, about doubting whether her boyfriend was only with her for her money. Despite everything, I tried to be kind. I told her I was sorry she felt that way and that she deserved better if that's truly how she was feeling. It felt like we might have actually been connecting for a second, until she looked at me dead in the eye and said, flatly, "This is your fault." I couldn't help it, my jaw hit the floor. When I asked her to repeat herself, she told me again that if I hadn't blown everything out of proportion and gone to the landlord, her boyfriend wouldn't be angry and none of this would have happened. According to her, I ruined everything. That moment hit me like a slap. I've bent over backward to be fair, set boundaries, tried to communicate respectfully, made real efforts to keep the peace and make the place livable. And yet, here I am, being blamed for everything while her boyfriend treats the flat like a free hotel and she can't even see it. So, here's where things stand. Our lease is up for renewal on August 1st. Yesterday, the landlord sent out a standard renewal reminder, asking us to let him know by July 1st if we're staying. I've thought long and hard about it, and I know now, without doubt, that I'm done here. Even if her boyfriend disappeared tomorrow, the trust is gone, and the comfort of home has evaporated. I won't be renewing my half of the lease. Whether I find a new place alone or with someone else, I'm moving on. I haven't told her yet, partly because I'm just not in the mood to endure another screaming match, but soon I'll give her proper notice and coordinate with the landlord. I've mentally committed, and this weekend I'll start seriously searching for a new flat or house share. It's daunting, I'm in a really good location right now and the rent is reasonable. It won't be easy to find somewhere as decent, especially solo, but I'd rather pay a little more than keep sacrificing my sanity and comfort. I've already started scouring spare room, Rightmove, Open Rent, RoomGo, and dipping my toe into a few local Facebook groups, trying to figure out the best avenues. If anyone has advice about starting as a group of renters versus moving into an existing house, those stories are always helpful. Part of me feels sad. This flat could have been perfect, but I know I'm making the right choice. I deserve a space that feels like mine, or at the very least, one where I'm not constantly being shouldered out emotionally. So wish me luck, and if anyone knows of a spare room in a chill, respectful house, send some good vibes my way. Thank you to everyone out there who helped me feel sane, and reminded me that a comfortable, safe home isn't too much to ask for. Update 5. Hi everyone. So much has happened in the past 2 weeks, and I can barely believe where I am now compared to when all this chaos started. If you've been following my recent life saga, you already know my roommate and her boyfriend turned my flat into their own playground while I slowly lost my space, and my sanity. Things have been, in a word, excruciatingly awkward. Ever since that night my roommate drunkenly accused me of sabotaging her relationship and blamed me for everything, it's been radio silence between us. I think we've exchanged 2 sentences in total, and both were the most boring household admin. Have you seen the post? Or the boiler man's coming on Thursday. That's it. Of course, her boyfriend is still around, just a little sneakier now. They're clearly trying to keep it under wraps after the landlord got wind of things, but she's still chosen him over harmony in the flat, and the air hums with that tension every single day. To be fair, he hasn't touched my stuff since our confrontation, maybe out of shame, maybe out of fear that I'll report him again, but the vibes here have not improved. If anything, she still glares at me like I'm the guilty villain in her tragic love story, and I am just so past being typecast in that role. But now, here's where things finally start to look up. I told the landlord I wouldn't be renewing the lease, and he asked if I planned on staying in the area. I said yes, but truthfully, I was getting nowhere with my frantic flat hunting online. Nothing seemed to click. It's a cutthroat market here, and I was starting to resign myself to moving elsewhere when I thought, why not just ask the landlord if any other flats in the building might be coming available? I shot him a casual email, figuring it was a shot in the dark, but I had nothing to lose. He got back to me the very next day. Turns out, a nearly identical flat, just 1 floor above, would be vacant in mid-July. Same layout, same rent, but a slightly newer kitchen and, best of all, a view that involved actual rooftops instead of the bin alley. Since I've always paid my rent on time, he even offered me the first viewing. I couldn't believe it. Same building, same landlord, new unit, no drama roommate. It felt like fate was finally on my side. I toured the flat last week. It's still a 2-bed, so perfect timing. My good friend, 23F, who I've known since 6th form and who desperately wants out of her current house share, was also looking to move. We caught up, chatted through the logistics, and realized our timelines were syncing up perfectly. She joined me for a second viewing, loved the place, and by Wednesday, we'd signed the new lease. On July 17th, the keys are ours. There's a twist I didn't see coming. My current roommate isn't renewing her lease either. After everything with the landlord blew up, she decided she's had enough of these rules, her words, delivered with the most biting passive aggression. She claims she's moving somewhere with fewer rules, and I sense she doesn't want to be anywhere near me, or a landlord who now knows her boyfriend's true residency status. So, she's leaving, I'll be just 1 floor above, and, huge sigh of relief, we are finally done as flatmates. I haven't told her where exactly I'm moving, and honestly, I don't feel obligated to spell it out. When she asked if I'd found somewhere, I just said it's all sorted with the landlord and kept it at that. If she bumps into me upstairs, well, that's a problem for future me. For anyone curious, especially my fellow UK renters, this is how it's going down. I submitted my 30-day notice as soon as I decided not to renew. The landlord accepted it, confirming my tenancy ends July 31st. Since he already knows me, and my rent punctuality, moving into the new flat was smooth sailing, no agency drama, just a standard credit check and ID confirmation. He uses a registered deposit scheme and is letting my current deposit roll over into the new flat, assuming my current one passes inspection. If I leave everything in good condition, I won't need a new deposit, absolute lifesaver. Plus, with the overlap, keys on July 17th, old lease ends July 31st, I get 2 solid weeks to move, clean, and completely avoid last-minute panics. My dad even offered to drive up and help with the heavy stuff, total hero. My friend's lease ends around the same time, so we'll both be moving in that weekend. All my council tax and utilities are sorted with the landlord, who's already notified the council. We just need to set up our water, electric, and internet from the 17th onward, and everything will be split 50-50, just like I've always wanted. The whole arrangement feels so healthy, new space, real boundaries from day one, and a friend I can count on. We've already had open conversations about splitting groceries, keeping our cleaning rota fair, and being realistic about overnight guests. For the first time in ages, the prospect of normal is so sweet I could cry. Now I'm in full prep mode, boxing up non-essentials, deep cleaning in little bursts, and honestly enjoying the process of starting fresh. Pinterest boards for the new living room and my bedroom have taken over my brain, and for once, I feel excited to make a space all my own. The relief of leaving the constant eggshell walking behind, of not living with a resentful roommate and her freeloading boyfriend, is immense. I'm so grateful to everyone who has supported me, offered advice, or just rooted for me along the way. Soon I'll be settled into my brand new flat, surrounded by real friends and real comfort, and I can't wait to finally feel at home. Update 6. So, I've been settled into my new flat for about 3 weeks now, and I honestly thought the drama with my old roommate was behind me. My friend and I have fallen into this brilliant routine. We actually communicate about everything, split costs fairly, and respect each other's space. It's been blissful, like remembering what normal feels like after months of chaos. But apparently, the universe wasn't quite done with me yet. Last Tuesday, I was heading home from work around 6 p.m. when I bumped into my old roommate in the building lobby. The moment she saw me, her face went through about 5 different emotions: surprise, confusion, then something that looked almost like betrayal. She asked, voice dripping with accusation, "You live here now?" When I confirmed I'd moved upstairs, she went completely mental. She started shouting right there in the lobby about how I was stalking her and how pathetic it was that I couldn't even move properly away. Apparently, in her mind, I'd orchestrated some elaborate scheme to stay close just to spite her. I tried explaining that it was just convenient, same landlord, same area, but she wasn't having it. She stormed off, muttering about how I was unhinged and needed to get a life. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next evening, I was cooking dinner when my friend came rushing in, looking absolutely shell-shocked. She'd been coming back from the corner shop when she ran into my old roommate's boyfriend in the stairwell. But here's where it gets mental. He wasn't with my old roommate. He was with some other girl, and they were all over each other, clearly heading up to what I can only assume was our old flat. My friend, bless her, has never been one to mind her own business when drama's involved. She lingered on the stairs, pretending to check her phone, and overheard enough to piece together that this other girl thought she was visiting his place. The boyfriend was talking about his flat and how his flatmate wouldn't be back until late. The audacity nearly killed me. This man, who couldn't afford his own shampoo just weeks ago, was now parading around like he owned the place and bringing other women there while my old roommate was presumably at work. I spent the entire night wrestling with whether to say something. Part of me wanted to stay completely out of it. I'd moved on, found my peace, why drag myself back into their mess? But another part of me kept thinking about how my old roommate, despite everything, didn't deserve to be cheated on in her own home. By Thursday, the decision was made for me. My old roommate was waiting outside my door when I got home from work, and she looked absolutely wrecked. Puffy eyes, mascara smudged, the whole 9 yards. The second she saw me, she just broke down. Turns out, she'd found a pair of women's underwear in her bed, not hers, and when she confronted her boyfriend, he tried to convince her they were mine from when I used to sneak men over. The sheer ridiculousness of it would have been laughable if she wasn't standing there, genuinely believing him for a hot second. She'd come to ask if I'd left anything behind, if there was any chance the underwear could be mine. When I told her absolutely not, and that I'd never had anyone over when we lived together, something in her face just crumpled. That's when I made probably the stupidest decision of my life. I told her what my friend had seen. The whole thing, the other girl, him pretending the flat was his, calling her his flatmate instead of his girlfriend. She went dead quiet for about 30 seconds, and then she asked me to prove it. I don't know what possessed me, but I agreed. We came up with this completely mental plan where my friend would text me the next time she saw him with someone, and my old roommate would happen to come home early. It didn't take long. Friday evening, my friend spotted them again. This time, I could hear everything from my flat, them laughing in the stairwell, the door slamming, music starting up. My old roommate was supposed to be working until 10 p.m., but she came home at 8:30. The screaming that followed could probably be heard 3 buildings over. I'm not proud to admit it, but my friend and I pressed our ears to the floor, listening to the whole thing unfold. There was shouting, crying, something that sounded suspiciously like a lamp being thrown, and then the other girl's voice, high and panicked, asking what was happening. The boyfriend tried to play it off like the other girl was just a friend, that they were studying, but apparently the evidence was pretty damning. My old roommate kicked them both out, and from what I could hear, it got nasty. Accusations flying, him calling her crazy and paranoid, her screaming about months of feeling like she was losing her mind. The aftermath has been intense. My old roommate knocked on my door the next morning, looking like she hadn't slept. She thanked me, apologized for everything from the past few months, and admitted she'd known something was off but kept making excuses for him. But here's the mental bit. She also asked if she could stay with me for a few days because she couldn't bear being in the flat alone with all the memories. My friend looked at me like I'd lost my mind when I said yes, but something about the whole situation just felt too raw to turn her away. So now, 3 weeks after finally escaping the drama, my old roommate is sleeping on my sofa, her cheating ex-boyfriend is presumably homeless again, and I'm somehow back in the middle of it all. The irony isn't lost on me, but weirdly enough, without the boyfriend around, she's actually decent company. We've had more real conversations in the past few days than we did in the entire year we lived together. She's looking for a new place, somewhere far from here, and swears she's learned her lesson about letting people walk all over her. Time will tell, I suppose. My friend keeps asking when our temporary houseguest is leaving, and honestly, I'm wondering the same thing. But for now, I'm just trying to navigate this bizarre twist where the person I was desperate to get away from has become someone I'm actually trying to help.